I took the night off, fellers. Sorry to tell you. That's the skinny uh, Friday night for you. Does that pretty regularly, though, to be honest. He taps out on Friday nights. I can't blame him. I can guarantee you this. He spends most of his time researching. I mean, I just to tell you that just from my experience, you want to make head or tails of all this ridiculous shit of like, dude, you have to spend a lot of time and immerse yourself in that shit. It's not just like you just gonna, stop by fuck your Google feed for 5 minutes a day. Nah, you gotta put in the time, put in the effort. It is what it is. Although luckily, today you could argue, the information is right at your fingertips. It's just getting finding the time to devote to something as dry as policy. I could never do it when I was working full time. It's just like I just didn't have the fucking drive for that stuff after work. I didn't have all that much time, and the time I did have, I didn't want to fucking waste it watching YouTube videos and shit. That would have sucked. But I mean, I actually kind of like it though. I mean, it suits me, but I wouldn't like it if I had to do that all day every day, or if I had to do that and another job. And I was stumbled upon a video about the German Revolution after World War One. I didn't even know that they had a revolution. I had no idea. I always thought it was just like the Kaiser that empire just collapsed. No, no, it was like a legit revolution. The soldiers revolted at the end of the war, basically, because their officers of the Navy or the military was going to sacrifice them. They knew that the war was over, but they were like, we're going to do one last hurrah, guys, to rescue the military's honor. And all the soldiers were like, wait, fuck you. We're not going to our deaths just so that you can say that you didn't get your asses kicked so badly. Like, I mean, it just kind of blows my mind, like how the gall of our ruling classes, like, who the fuck do they think they are? Like they're willing to ask people to give up their lives so that they can save face. It's just like, what? But and actually Germany, I didn't know this either. Germany was the first Western country to give women the vote. They before the US, before Britain, before France, they were the first country that women got to vote. I mean, that shit's crazy. I had no idea. Although it makes sense. They were pretty progressive society at that time. But it's kind of at the same time though, they like quickly devolved into fascism. It was like what a decade went by, and the next thing you know, they're fucking voting for old Uncle Adolf. But it's just something I caught my eye, and a little tidbit of history that I thought was interesting. That it kind of is. You always hear about the Russian Red October or the American Revolution, the French Revolution. No, you don't ever hear anybody talk about German Revolution. Uh, and honestly, even though it wasn't as eventful as some of the other revolutions, it's great to have it as an example because it's a good example of one way that revolutions can end up. Because revolution, it's kind of like it's Pandora's box. Once the son of a bitch is open, it's open. Like you're gonna get what you're gonna get. Like that's just the way it is. Whoever wins that struggle wins that struggle. And however long it takes. But it's just an example, a historical example that you can draw inferences from and stuff. Get kind of a bearing, or it helps people understand how governments and how revolutions and shit work. You know, something else, man. England right now, they literally just passed a law making it legal to abort a child up until birth. So the UK, a woman can legally get an abortion at 9 months pregnant. I mean, and the parliament decided they were going to vote for this. They voted for it. And then I guess, the House of Lords has a veto. And the whole country was kind of like, oh, well, they're conservative compared to the House of Commons. They'll knock this down. No, they said, no, we'll get out of the way. We like this. And it's just like, you know, one can't look at the West. If you look at it objectively, as if it was like a monopoly board or like a risk board, and you kind of look at the dynamics going on, especially in the West, and you get the idea that somebody wants the West to die. Somebody has orchestrated the suicide of the West, basically. And it's obvious. They're importing a population. Uh, they're discriminating against the Western peoples. White peoples. They're discriminating against. I mean, it's just like all these different variables, all these different situations, just all aligned in one direction, and that's getting rid of the West. And it's crazy because this whole world order, the way the world is today, is because of the Western contributions. But it's like it's not really up for debate. Like, it's obvious if you look at it, and as a strategy, a civilizational strategy, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. It's an interesting strategy, to say the least, to convince your own populations. Like in Canada, for instance, they have legalized euthanasia. You can just go into the doctor and tell them you're tired of living and they'll kill you. That's fucking crazy. Like, absolute that's absolutely insane. And making abortion legal up until birth. You know, Carthage, the Carthaginians, they did child sacrifice. Their nobles would sacrifice their firstborn child, and they would do hundreds of them at once for fortune, basically. Their sacrifice to their gods. That's where we're at. And matter of fact, I would imagine that Carthage would probably be like, "Whoa, you guys are fucking out there, man! Like, you guys really take this shit serious." Yeah, because we're just like killing ourselves, not even in the crib, in the womb. It's insane, man. Like, straight up killing ourselves in the womb. And it doesn't make any sense. But like, I seen a thing where Britain, they said that I think they used 15,000 fetuses to heat. They incinerated 15,000 remains of fetuses to heat these hospitals, bro. Okay, I get that the Handmaiden's Tale or whatever, that was science fiction and like this dystopian world. Except, yeah, we're in the exact opposite. And the exact opposite doesn't entail continuing into the future. It just entails stopping at this here generation right now. But I mean, if you think about that, bro, heating hospitals by burning human remains, if you would have told anybody this in the 90s, they would not have believed you. You could not have convinced them that this was going to be the road we went down. And it's horrifying. Is there any other way to put that? That's fucking horrifying, bro. That is absolutely barbaric, to say the least. Like, being as, babies, they are the weakest and most vulnerable of humans. And it's just like, whoa, man. Like, we talk about women's liberation and women having the right to vote and women working, but nobody ever talks about that whole idea and that whole deal, feminism and stuff, is all built upon the ready access or readily availability of on-demand abortions. It could not exist without being propped up by baby killing. If that was not legal, women would not it would not be the way it is now. It is synthetic, it is artificial, and it is only that way because we have been systematically killing off our children for like decades now. I mean, that it's that simple. And that's just diabolical, man. Like it's so sickening. It's so sickening, bro, that our society has reached this nadir. I mean, it's just like, bro, when the Romans destroyed Carthage because of that. Literally, like, bro, they destroyed Carthage because they were sacrificing their children. They wiped them off the face of the earth because the West considered that barbaric. And we're like, we've taken it to a fucking extreme compared to the Carthaginians. At least they were doing it for a legit, like their actual religion. I mean, today we're not doing it for like a old time religion. We're like we're inventing this new techno fucking ridiculous techno religion, and like we're willing to literally pay the price of our future and our future generations so that this generation of women can work at jobs that they hate. I mean, tell me how that makes sense. How does that fucking make sense, man? Like, what are we getting out of this? Are we getting like a return on our investment here? We're not going to exist anymore, but you know what? At least those women can work those jobs. Hey, at least those women can work those jobs. Huh, what would we ever do without that? I mean, it's just such an unnatural state of being. And men have never really gone. I mean, I guess our ruling class has gone along with it. Men have never really gone along with it. It's always stuck in our craw. It's always been an issue for us because we don't get a say. But just the fact that all of this shit is it's a kabuki theater, it's a fucking fugazi. It's not real. And it's so funny when I hear these feminists talking about what's up, Arceus? When I hear these feminists talking about, oh, when we solidify our gains in the modern world where women don't have to worry about having their rights taken away. It's like, are you fucking on crack? Do you not realize like what is sacrificed so that you can have these privileges? Like, yeah, we're just not reproducing anymore. And that's all for you to work your special job that you went to school for a few years for. And it's just like, man, we've lost the motherfucking plot, dude. We have lost the plot, man. We're not in reality. And like these women, oh, when we solidify our gains, you'll never solidify those gains, sweetheart, because it's not a natural state of being. It cannot stand. I mean, unless we find, I mean, before the 90s, it was I mean, we had abortions, but women really didn't get that many. And all of a sudden, the last few years, it's skyrocketed. I mean, I'm talking straight up on the line graph, straight up from like 2018 or 2019. And we're like we're aborting like the exact shortfall amount that we're aborting the same amount as we're short for replacement. If we did no abortions, we would be replacing ourselves right now. Put it that like that's where we're at. The exact amount of children we need to have to be above replacement is the amount of children women are fucking aborting. Isn't that some shit? Huh. Almost as if their women are just literally killing all of the future children, basically. I mean, it's just like, bro, when the numbers line up that neatly, that's not a fucking coincidence, man. They're literally killing off the next generation because they think that, oh, that they'll lose something. They've had this brainwashing, this propaganda that their body will change and it will be for the worse and it'll never be the same. Uh, their life will change. They'll lose their identity. This, that, and the third. They've come to actually fear a pregnancy. They fear it. Like no shit. They fear that shit. And and then not only do they fear it, but they don't think they're capable of raising children. Like, these women, they've been coddled. They've been told that they're special and they're the greatest. And regardless of whether or not they fail or they succeed, they're told that they're perfect exactly how they are. And so they never really grow up. They never really mature enough to feel like they could actually be a good mother. Because, when it comes down to it, nobody is prepared for children. It doesn't matter how much you prepare. It doesn't matter how much money you save. It's not going to be enough. You're never going to get into a position where you're like, okay, now I can have kids. That doesn't fucking exist. You you either have the kids, you get busy living or get busy dying. If you're waiting, I'm waiting. I'm gonna, I'm s- I'm gonna, s- I'm waiting to have my kids at such and such age. It's like, well, then you're not gonna have them. You're not gonna have them. And that's how it's starting to turn out. Everybody's starting to realize, oh shit, if you stall that shit a year or two, like that's all. That's it. That's all you need to do. Stall it a year or two, and that's it. You miss the train. You miss the train, sweetheart. And they think they have all the time in the world. It's like, no, no, no. I mean, everybody thought that up until the last few years, and it's like, whoa, yeah, there isn't enough time for you broads, for you birds. Y'all need, And I remember years ago when I was still on Facebook, and we were talking about, there was a discussion, and this was before we really got polarized. When we still had conversations on Facebook, like I still had women on my Facebook friends list, and we would hash out, argue about and debate issues. And I think that was when I lost all the chicks that I went to school with. They all fucking unfriended me because we were talking about the replacement rate, and I'm like, you realize, this is your fucking duty. Like, this is your duty, ladies. Like, and we don't have anybody else to do it. Like, you got to do it. Yeah, there is no one else. You're it. You're the women that are supposed to be the mothers. Like, that's it. We don't have. How dare you think that we're just baby machines and this, that, and the third? And it's like, oh my god, grow the fuck up already. Grow up. Come on, grow up. They want us to give. Oh, we're adults and we want to get all these rights, this and that, but we're not responsible enough to actually maintain and budget or maintain our reproductive health and have practice you know good good habits like condoms or not having unprotected or whatever. You're just not taking chances like that. No, 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 they're not ever forced to become responsible. It's like, yeah, you don't want to have kids and you kind of try to avoid it if you can, but if you have an accident, oh well, there's always plan B. There's always abortion. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, bro, we don't expect anything of them. And because of that, we don't get anything of them. And I mean, and they have their way of being and stuff. Women have their way. Like, I think I said this like last week, where women, they tend to, when they think about, or when they're before they get married, or when they're young, they fantasize about getting swept off their feet, like Cinderella, or take your pick of any of those stories, any of the fairy tales and stuff. The guy always shows up out of nowhere and plucks her from obscurity and makes her a princess or something. But it's always like, a rich, handsome prince. And he literally scoops her from this, he sweeps her off her feet from this like lowly position of life she has, or kind of uh, just a generic life, and he scoops her up. Well, that is women's archetype. That is their story. Men go out and stake their claim on the world. They go blaze a trail. They build a life. Then they go find a woman, they pluck her from whatever she was doing to pass the time until somebody plucked her, and then they start their life. So everything that happens between the time a woman, uh, turns 18 and when she gets married, all that stuff is moot. She could just be playing instruments, she could be farming, she could be going to school. It really doesn't matter because she's destined to be a mother. And the guy is sorting that stuff out. So it really doesn't matter. And that's why I feel like women, they have this really, like, they take their 20s so unseriously, and they kind of get caught with their pants down. But that's because the way things used to be is they just kind of happened to women. you know they didn't have to go out and really intently and deliberately figure out their way forward. They just had to wait to be chosen. The man did all that stuff. And I'm not making any value judgments or anything here. I'm just saying, that's why women have that. That's why they see the world in that way. Whereas, we don't. We have the burden of performance. We're like, okay, we got to go out and cut our teeth, go out and make our fortune, go out and make a life, and then bring a woman into it. That's kind of what you do. Well, that's what a man does. And I feel like sometimes we forget about that, they're like, oh, women have it so easier, or, women, they're so lackadaisical, they don't even think about their future. And it's like, yeah, well, that's just the way the cards were dealt. They don't have a choice in it. We don't, like, they didn't choose it. But I feel like that mode of being has carried over into the modern era where they think everything's just going to land in their lap. It's not so. It's like, you asked for this. You asked for the equality and shit. That means that shit ain't gonna be coming to you anymore. You're gonna have to go find it, and it's not easy. It's not that easy. They're finding out, and it just sucks because the men years ago warned them about this. People warned them like, "Yo, hey, this might not be all that you think it's gonna be. I mean, be careful what you wish for." And it's like now, all of a sudden, I keep seeing articles, and I just feel like the culture is kind of like, shocked. It's like jumping up, like, oh my God, I thought we had time. It's kind of like how a woman is in her 20s, waiting to the last fucking minute. And also, like I said, it seems like it seems like somebody has it out for the West. It does. If you look at it objectively, they're importing another population. They're, up, or they're loosening restrictions on abortions. They push feminism. I mean, all the schools, all the different institutions, they all despise homemakers and the thought of raising children. They straight up, man, like, they're like, what are you doing in school then? It's a waste of an education. You're just gonna go have, and it's like, man, how pathetic and inhumane. Like, it's awful. But that's what they're pushing. I really do feel bad for my own generation, my own cohort, and the ones younger than me, because we really got hammered with this. The women I went to school with, they didn't know that this is how it was going to turn out. They had no idea. I truly, I believe that we've been taken advantage of. I mean, our ruling class, they really kind of let us off the cliff, more or less, or let us, they Pied Pipered our asses trying to get rid of us. And I mean, if you look at Australia, Canada, Britain, bro, some of those cities look like Cairo or Syria, Damascus and shit. Like, I seen a Scottish town the other day, like I was saying, and bro, it looked like motherfucking Damascus, and they all, except with a Scottish accent. It was awful. I mean, it really kind of struck me. It sent a chill up my spine. And that's not by accident. None of the events that happen in the West are by accident. They're not. They're just not. And I saw somebody, that Professor Zhang, he put it interesting. He said, the position that the West is in right now, especially Europe, Britain, France, they have, and Britain especially because they have they still have their Commonwealth. Basically, their Commonwealth states, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, those are just glorified resource colonies. They have a small outpost of a small colony in Australia that helps them extract resources from the continent of Australia. Same thing with Canada. Canada, by the way, is the richest country on the planet. I didn't realize that. Yeah, Canada is straight up the richest country on the planet. It's really not even a country. It's basically just a shit ton of resources with with like a night watchman. That's basically the population there. They just keep an eye on the equipment. But Professor Zhang, he was saying what it looks like to me, or if you looked at Europe and the West as a corporation, you would say, that they needed to make a change, they needed to restructure middle management for a different orientation for the future. And if you were going to restructure middle management, that would be scrapping the entire middle management workforce and bringing in a new one. Well, Britain has been down this road before, and there is a group of people who they work really, really well with: the Indians. The Indian elites helped Britain pilfer trillions of dollars from Asia, and they willingly helped them. They helped the British grab with both hands, just take like shit was going out of style. And the Indians helped them, willingly helped them confiscate, fucking do a wealth transfer from India to England. And guess, I mean, that Zhang, when he said it, I was like, wow, he's absolutely right. Well, they're shipping in Indians now. They're putting in they're restructuring middle management. And they think they'll do better with Indians than they will with Canadians who built the country. Apparently, all the West is thinking this because they basically got rid of everybody that built all these nations, that built all this infrastructure. They're getting rid of everybody, and they're literally shipping in a new workforce. I mean, it's like, bro, it's just about as cynical and craven as things could get, as humanly possible. Like, our ruling class, they really have broken it down to us versus them, and they just don't see us as particularly valuable. I mean, and you can see they just keep kicking us in the balls. They want no let up. Every time you turn around, every time you look on the news, there's some fresh outrage that are the Western elites, France, America, England. It's just the what's the latest outrage? Today it's fucking abortions up until it's the child's born. I mean, it's like, what, in the next 5 years is it going to be legal to just off your toddler? Is that where we're going? Because I think you could argue that that is the case. That we're going to that place, man. We're going to a really evil place. No, my parents aren't from the British Isles. My mom lived there though in her childhood for like 8 years or something. Yeah, they just keep kicking us in the nut satchel here. All the immigration, there's a reason. Mark me, there's absolutely a reason. It's not just a coincidence. And it kind of strikes me as, and that Professor Zhang, he said the same thing. He's like, honestly, I don't really know what the hell's going on there. He's like, it's a strange strategy. He's like, I don't see what they hope to get from this other than replacing us. you know, just straight up replacing us. I mean, because I kind of see it that way too. Like they don't really care who the hell is on their hamster wheel. As long as somebody's on the fucking hamster wheel, that's all they care about. And they don't care what front they're under or what corporation name they're under, whether it's Israel, whether it's America. I mean, I think that all of this, I mean, we see all the West all separated up with borders or, different nations. I don't think they see it that way. I don't think they see it that way. I feel like they see it like as it's one big entity and they each have their little fiefdom within it. Because it's not like what they're doing, they're not just doing it in England. They're doing it in every one of these countries. And it's like you can't deny it. It's obvious what the hell is going on here, It's absolutely obvious. There is no denying it. It is not up for debate. The whole West is taking part in this shit. And what's fucking crazy is if you think about like the or the all the Arabs and the Muslims that they led into Europe, those people are very proud of their religion and their culture. And they ain't going to give that culture up, not for nobody. They're not assimilating. That shit ain't going to happen. They thought maybe they could get them to do it, possibly, but they bring those people over here and they're not assimilating, and now they're like, well, shit, they can't really get rid of them now. Basically, and now they're basically scheming, and they're saying, yeah, we're gonna go to war with Russia, and we're gonna institute like a draft, but not any of the foreigners, nobody from the Middle East. So they're going to draft the Westerners that they have left over, and they're going to ship them to the meat grinder. Bro, this sounds worse than World War fucking two, man. Like, they're like doing the cattle car thing again. It's not really funny either. It's like, what the fuck is going on here, dude? This is dystopian shit, man. It's like they're giving us a carrot and it's doing the carrot and stick thing. They have a carrot in front of us to get abortions and this and that, to not have kids, and then a stick behind us, so that it's just like, holy fuck, man, what is going on here, dude? This is really dystopian shit, man. Really dystopian shit. Like, this is worse than people thought it was going to. Like, everybody thinks things are going to be the Terminator, going to end up with Skynet and shit. No, no. Most likely, it's a lot less sexy than that. It's like some really shitty, ignominious fall, some really crappy end. Because like the Terminator, Skynet, that kind of has a crescendo and kind of a swagger about it, bro. Aborting yourself out of existence, that is like, that's like that ain't no way to go out. Our women don't see the value in reproducing, so we're not reproducing, basically. And it's just like, holy shit, man. And the women, they're not even really conscious, they're not self-aware enough to understand what's happening. They don't even see it. It's like all they can focus on is this little fucking nut right in front of them, working at their little shitty job. They never once lift their head up and look around. None of them even realize what's about to hit us. Like, none of them realize what's going on. All they know is how they feel right now and what the forces at play in their life, dating and this and that. And it's just like, God damn, must be nice. Shit. To be able to just focus in on something like that. I know you guys see it, and it's alarming. And the more I look closer, I almost want to say the worse it gets. But that's one side of the coin. And another side of the coin is what the change to come will bring. Because as of the last 100 years, we've been in like an artificial, almost like how the feminists have it with women, where it's they're in this artificial state of being, where it's propped up by some evil shit. Well, the world has been in an artificial peacetime. This notion of the end of the world, it's bullshit. But we have this idea that the world is just going to stay the way it is, where we're the hegemon, and us being the hegemon, that has a really stifling and stagnating effect on the rest of the world. Think about all the countries that don't have militaries because we protect them. Japan, Germany, they don't build any machinery for militaries. They don't even have a military budget. Imagine if they did, if all of a sudden we were cut out of the picture and they had to fend for themselves. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to fucking scramble and figure the shit out and make it work. Especially the Japanese, they're known for this. But right now, they're a lot of countries, they're living fat on the hog. They're living high off the hog. They've had it so easy, for the last 80 years. They haven't had to have a military or none of that stuff. And when this change does come, these countries are going to snap out of this fucking malaise that they're in. Germany, Britain, they will have to protect their own trade, possibly. They won't have Big Brother to do it anymore, or possibly. But they'll have to like mercantilism will take off. They'll have to actually fend for themselves to a certain degree and protect their own supply chains and shit. So it's going to require them to be a little bit more savvy in their foreign policy. But not only that, but they'll have to start inventing and start creating new ways of manufacturing to get their militaries up to snuff, their navies up to snuff. I mean, dude, I genuinely there's definitely there's the shitty side of the ledger, the negative, and there's the positive side of the ledger. I think actually once we finally cross and the change starts going into, if it starts happening, I think that we're gonna see like a really, like, maybe possibly even a renaissance, but like a new a fresh, like a second wind, if you will, a fresh breath of air, and kind of a fresh slate, or a clean slate almost. Because all of a sudden the world will be different, and these countries will have to, they will have to adapt. In Japan, they are known for their adapting. Like, they literally went from a fucking feudal system of government and shit in like the 1860s or something. They went from that in 20 years. They were a completely industrialized power, equal to like Russia and shit, which they defeated in a war. I mean, that is like the only example of that kind of vibrance and vigorousness. That kind of industry by they're the only example of that. Like, where a country just makes a decision to do something, like Russia. It took them like a century to do this. To like, they went from a non-industrialized to industrialized over the 20th century. The Japanese did that shit over 20 fucking years, man. And they did it, they actually succeeded at it. It didn't collapse at the end. So it's like you can't count those countries down and out. Or like North and South Korea. South Korea is kind of doing rough. Their birth rate's like awful. But like South Korea, they have or North Korea has artillery within 30 minutes of Seoul, the biggest city in South Korea. So if they ever had a war, North Korea would destroy South Korea's capital within the first couple days. In 30 minutes, they could destroy that entire capital. So stands to reason uh they'll probably reintegrate, and they'll become just Korea again. I mean, why wouldn't they? North Korea has the population, South Korea has the industrialization. But I mean, like, this is what I'm saying is we're going to get synergy, you know. That's what's going to happen after the world is going to open up again. There's going to be there's going to be opportunity on the table again. Cuz right now we kind of have that shit locked up. It's kind of locked up and out of everybody's reach. America and China have been kind of hoarding the hoarding everything good basically. China, they benefit from this from the petrodollar as much as we do really. They don't want to get rid of it. Like we're in an artificial period of cheap energy because of the deal that America worked out with the House of Saud. So energy is super cheap. But when this deal of the petrodollar, where they're reinvesting all the money back into America's economy, when that's done, all of a sudden energy is gonna like be way more expensive for good permanently. China ain't because what China their economy is based off of importing energy and exporting goods, manufactured goods. That is their economy. Importing energy, cheap energy, and exporting manufactured goods. And if they don't have the cheap energy, they can't make the goods cheap enough to make it worthwhile. And in China, they're quite a wealthy country, and they've had that wealth for decades now. Those people, the Chinese people, they're not going to accept an economic downturn, and the commies know that. Xi Jinping, he knows that he can't risk them not growing at 5%. They have to grow at 5%, or they get thrown the hell out of office basically. We don't ever think of that, that the Chinese people have a say in all this too. It's not just our elites versus the Chinese elites or what. Honestly, we're not even really all that much of enemies. China, they haven't fought a fucking war since Korea. And they actually have no foreign policy. Like, they don't even have policy prescriptions for how to intervene in a conflict like we do. You know how we intervene in all kinds of conflicts? We stick our big fat fucking noses, our J noses and everything. China, they don't even have policies that even like have a pathway to do that. That doesn't exist in their political world. That's not an option to invade or to step in and fucking break up a fight. That isn't in their fucking purview. They don't see it that way. We see it that way. But China, and like it's kind of cool how they see themselves, like in the Lord of the Rings, you have Middle Earth. That's how China sees themselves as a middle kingdom. They're they're so totally self-sufficient. They don't need they could totally go isolationist and they would be fine. Same as us. So they're like a middle kingdom though. You know, they're a natural since probably the beginning of civilization, they have been one of the natural rulers of the world. They're going to be a world power no matter what. They've been a world power. They have the bulk of, one of the uh, key land masses on the planet, Asia. And that's important. But it just makes them a horse of a different color. They're not the same as Germany. They're not the same as Russia. They're a massive civilization that is old as time, practically, similar to the Persians. And actually, that like I was saying, as the example I used the other day, it's only the Persians and the Chinese were the only countries of Asia that Britain didn't subjugate or colonize. They were never able to do it because those countries are so they're such a well defined group of people that it's you can't really like Britain didn't have the resources in the population to do that. It's really, there's a lot going on in the world. There's so much going on. Like, and it is kind of cool, you kind of follow a thread and kind of figure out what each country, what their potential is. And And like America, North and South America are totally self-sufficient. We have oil, we have everything. Iron, oil, aluminum. We got it all. Whether it be Canada or, with their oil shale, whether it be us with our oil, fracking, the Gulf of America, Texas, Venezuela, we're good on energy. We are the fortress, and we own North and South America. It's just that simple. We are the big top, we're the top dog of the Americas. This is our shit. Just like Trump with Greenland, that is our shit. Whether the rest of the world likes it or not, that's our shit. And that's the nice thing about it is once we get Greenland, we have our shit locked down. Nobody will be able to fuck with our trade routes or nothing. Like we're in there like swimwear. And we're like China is self-sufficient, we're self-sufficient, and we have two whole continents. And we're like this island fortress. Everybody else is connected and together. They can invade each other via land. Not over here. And that's like and basically what that means is we're always going to be one of the top countries on the planet as long as we continue existing. We're always going to have one of the top 3 standard of living because we fucking own like a quarter of the planet and like a shit ton of resources. I mean, a lot of resources, man. North and South America, you kidding me? They got a ton, and Mexico, they have a lot of resources too, as far as I know. But like, man, and you must say, like, we got pretty damn lucky. And the fact that, like, and I know that there's a sense of manifest destiny. I know that people thought that back when the country was founded because it was like a godsend that we got this huge chunk of land and that we're a socially homogenous peoples. When America was started, it was started by Anglo-Saxon Protestants, Celtic and Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and everybody got along. It was very homogenous, and that made us successful. And we did have a civil war, but we didn't chop the country up and make it into a bunch of little countries like Europe. It's one big country with one group of people, most for the most part, and it may not be the best. There may be more resources on the Eurasian landmass, but like we got what we need. We got what we need. We don't need anything else. We'd be just fine if all we had was our two continents. We'd be just fine, and the rest of the North and South America would be just fine. And that's a good thought. That's a nice thought. But I mean, really, it wouldn't behoove us to go isolationist and stuff. I'm sure we would continue trading with the rest of the world. It's just nice to know that no matter what, you know, our like we have like a minimum standard of living. I mean, just because we are sitting pretty, you know, on the one of two land masses on the planet, and we don't really have any rivals. We don't have any rivals. We don't. And since they took Venezuela, I mean, that was strategic. We took Venezuela for the oil. It was just us locking down our resources. And the whole empire thing, I was kind of like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I'm buying this, but I kind of get it now. Like, we're not taking anything from anybody. We're just making sure that nobody else can take those resources. Because you have to take stock. Like we're Brave New World type shit. We got to know what we have, what resources we have. We have to know that stuff. We have to know, what are the resources that we have at our disposal. And I feel like it's a damn shame that, Canada, like we can't just join up with Canada. I'm sure at some point we will, but it would be nice if we could just join up with Canada and just fucking And you know, I was thinking about this too, you know, with Canada and Mexico. Eventually, we're just going to be one country. North America is just going to be its own country. It's going to be a nation or an empire. But and, you know, I used to that kind of grossed me out, or it used to, but not really anymore. Not really anymore. I mean, I think you know, the Mexicans are decent people. You know, they're Christian, and we understand them, and we know we live amongst. They live amongst us, and we live amongst them, and we could do worse. In other words, we could do worse. Honestly, you know, we can trust them. We've helped each other over the centuries. We can trust them. They're not going to betray us. Most likely, I mean, for the most part, I don't think they would betray us or Russia or something. And you know, Canada, they are basically us. It's just like we kind of lucked out. We really more or less lucked into a pretty damn good position, a good situation. And it is nice. It is nice to you know, it's easy to get all worried about shit. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? But when you kind of like break it down, we're actually in pretty damn good shape. And even though, you know, the world is going to change soon and we're not going to be the hegemon, I actually think that our lives will probably get better once we're not. You know, we'll still have you know, we'll still have these two continents to ourselves basically, and we won't have to fucking be world police anymore. We could just worry about our shit. You know, I just feel like we'll be able to focus on ourselves more, and all of the countries that are currently all the Western countries that are having this malaise where they're not having children, they're not growing, they're just dying off. That shit's gonna change. It's gonna change because the world is gonna change. Thank God. I mean, it's like it can't come soon enough because the way we have it now, it's just not working. I mean, anybody that like you know wants to argue with people like try to argue with me about that, and it's like, bro, just what exactly do you think is going according to plan here with that's currently happening? Just exactly explain that one to me. What the fuck is going right now? Because as far as I can tell, everything is fucked. Pretty much. It's not our fault either. We might have thought maybe it was our fault years ago, but Trump, he just proved to us that it ain't our fault. It don't matter what we think. They do what they want to do. So it ain't our fault. They're the fuck ups. They're the ones that obviously they can't cut the mustard anymore. They can't they can't fucking properly administer our fucking country anymore, our civilization anymore. Apparently. I mean, maybe they need to be swapped out because like yeah, they're kind of dropping the ball. It's some bullshit. You know, we're paying all this money, working our lives away, and they take their cut and they fucking blow it on some monkey shine, some fucking foreign adventure. It's like, man, you know, you're really demoralizing us. Like people don't want to try anymore. People don't want to succeed and achieve anymore because they're tyrannized. They don't see the point. No matter what people do, this system stands on their windpipe. And people are just like, fuck, you know, our women are degenerate. Our women, they waste their 20s, their most fertile years, they waste those making porn and shit. Like what the fuck? You know, you look at an 18 or 20-year-old girl, you know, 20-year-old white girl in America, either she's going to college or she's going on OnlyFans or doing porn. Like either you go to college to see if you can make a career, you know, figure out a career, or you go and sell yourself. Take your pick. You know, I don't think this modern world is really all that great. I think it's actually a really seedy and disgusting place. And we have these little fairy tales that we tell ourselves so that we don't see how disgusting it really is. To think that being a porn star or a prostitute is considered uh, a more socially virtuous career than being a mother at 20. I mean, like they would no girl at 20 when it wants to be caught dead, having children or considering marriage, but they're more than happy to go, get their brains fucked out of them by some some fucking Tyrone, some Chad. They'll spend their whole 20s doing that. And then when they're used up and worthless to that or useless to those guys anymore, they get cast aside and then they're bitter. They have nothing. They have zero. They haven't made anything. They haven't built anything. They literally spend their 20s getting worn out so that they can pay to live, so that they can pay their own way and pay for their rent and shit. They go and sell their femininity, their youth, their fertility. They go and sell that to some fucking bluebeards that are buying it from them so that they can sell pornography. It's just like, whoa, man. That the fucking abortions and the other myriad of degeneracy. It's like, man, I think to me, it's like a house of cards, man. And it's like a Jenga that you've taken all the blocks that you can out of it. And it's fixing to collapse. It's going to collapse. And when it collapses, I do believe that the West will be reinvigorated, or that these countries that have this malaise, they haven't been paying for a military, or haven't even had to think about a military. They haven't had to consider research and development of weapons, and all the logistical stuff and all the different jobs that entails. They've been slacking, and pretty soon they're going to have to get back on the ball. Germany, Britain. I mean, they're not going to return to their once greatness, but they're going to have to figure out how to find their way. Because and like with Japan and North and South Korea, I just these are old nations of people, and I don't think that they're with a changing a different dynamic, they would be doing better. I just feel like a lot of these countries don't really they're like people, a lot of men and people, young people nowadays, they don't really see much of a point in like putting effort in. They don't see anything to be gained. And that's going to change. The more I think about it, the more it starts to seem like America being the hegemon really has just frozen things in an artificial uh way, or the orientation is all artificial. We're not, this isn't natural, where all these countries don't have militaries. All they're concerned with is maintaining their social programs, no growth, no achieving. Same thing with Japan. And Japan, they're still a dynamic country. They just don't have, there's no necessity for them to, like, if when the world changes, people are going to start to feel like it's their duty again to have kids. Because all of a sudden, the world, we don't have America protecting us anymore. We need to start having kids. All of a sudden, people start feeling, oh, whoa, my community needs me to do something all of a sudden, and it's like the real world reality asserts itself again. But, we've been subsidizing everybody, and we have convinced everybody that things will never change and that we're at the end of the world or end of history. That's so stupid. I don't know how anybody ever considered that to be possible. The end of fucking history? Are you stupid? It just seems dumb to me. Like, of course things are going to ebb and flow and change. And countries that are down right now are going to be up later. Like it's some people they want to. It's like they see the way they see the world is they see everything as set. Everything is it's a done deal. It's all set in place, and nothing. The only way things are going to change is for the worst. Countries are just going to continue to decline. They're not going to, stand, get back up, and brush the dirt off their shoulder. That's stupid, though. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody, all these different countries, all these different peoples, they're just, their current malaise is just a symptom of the world order we've been living in for almost a century. The shitty liberal world order. I just don't think it's very conducive to human beings. Like, no liberalism is like everywhere you see liberalism used, people are fucking fading away and dying off. I just don't see that as very healthy. I don't see it as vibrant, vigorous, as none of that. It's not dynamic at all. It's just this ossified, pathetic way of life that we seem to think is the way to be, but it's not, man. It's fucking sad, bro. As a way of life, it's like, yeah, go find a place to die and lay down. Like go find a place to lay down and die. That's where we're at is like the West. It's like, man, we kind of have reached the end of history with this with where this paradigm is concerned. We need a change in the world order, the change in the paradigm for us to, get kind of woken up out of this stupor, because the way things are, I just, we wouldn't change. I could see that clearly. It just, we wouldn't change. But, when this world order, switches up, we'll be forced to. And humans are going to adapt. They're going to change, they're going to adapt. We're not stupid people. Our civilizations are storied and historical, and we've been through tougher. We've been through plagues. We've been through this, that. I mean, we've been through way worse than this. And, people black pilling and stuff. It's like, man, you hold the phone. Wait, wait on the black pilling, because, as I saw it, like even just a couple years ago, nobody had any idea what was on the horizon other than maybe AI. Nobody, it's like, what's going to happen from here on out? Like, everybody's birth rates are declining. It's just like we're kind of stagnant. And to my mind, like I just couldn't shake this feeling that there's something is going to happen, something unforeseeable. There's, and that's how things always happen. Some unforeseeable event pops up, and it totally transforms the outlook of everybody. Like the Black Plague. That whatever you were worried about before the Black Plague, you damn sure ain't worried about that same stuff during the Black Plague. But there's a lot of these circumstances in history where, bro, some event happens and just fucking blindsides the current paradigm, and it's just gone instantly. That's it. It's gone. And I just can't help but think, like, the way things are, I don't know if we could really gradually get ourselves out of it. Like, if nothing changed, I'm not so sure if I think we probably would just keep declining. But, I just feel like there is a desire for better than what we have. There is a desire for achievement, but not with what we have now. There's just not enough opportunity. All these countries, imagine how they feel. There's no opportunity. They can't wheel and deal. They can't connive and they can't like do the realpolitik thing and trade and barter and fucking be in cahoots with your neighbors or enemies, nemesis with your neighbors. Like there is none of that because we have everything artificially locked in place. And we tell everybody how it's going to be. Well, when we're not in that position, all these countries are going to have to decide how it's going to be for them. There ain't nobody going to be there to tell them how it's going to be. They're going to have to decide that shit. And that is going to that's going to force some of that some of that good old fashioned, western know-how to stand up and be counted. And I think Like I was saying, China, they really do benefit from the current paradigm. They're going to have to change with this new world order. Because if they don't change, they're just going to fade off. They're not going to, they will have to change because the cheap energy, where they ship in cheap energy and export manufactured goods. That's not going to be a workable model going forward. But it's like there's a world of choices, and I feel like once this shitty paradigm of no options, no variability, no dynamism, it's just the same thing over and over. And yeah, I guess it's good if it was good if you wanted to be able to pay off debt and project into the future. But man, we were just dying off with all that routine and shit. We're just like there's no will to do anything. Well, with a new vibrant world order, I think that's kind of like the kickstart, the kick in the ass we need. It just I see a lot to be hopeful for. It seems like this paradigm shift is going to happen while we're still in a position to correct our birth rate and shit. I mean, I think we'll be able we'll walk away from this as long as we can make it to the next paradigm. I don't see how we're not going to continue. Like I said, we have this fortress, two huge continents to all for us and the other residents of our hemisphere. But we're like the bulk of the residents of our hemisphere. We have the biggest country. Most of the other populations are kind of small. Venezuela, they're just kind of like I guess Brazil's pretty damn big. Mexico's pretty big, but they're not US, and they don't have that the dynamism that we have, the ability to just stick and move and adapt and change. It's like we're kind of getting a good deal, especially with our neighbors. We have Mexico. We got the cheap labor on lock with Mexico. We don't need Chinamen. We got the fucking Mexicans, bro. They will get down with the getting down. Leave that. Yeah, if we was to join forces with the everybody, Mexico and Canada, bro. Canada is the richest fucking country on the planet. Mexico, fantastic uh uh uh, uh skilled labor, skilled workers, uh, skilled tradesmen and laborers. So we literally have the human capital and we have the financial, the economic capital. It's just like, bro, we're sitting in a really good place. I mean, hopefully our our overlords don't shit the bed, because they were really good administrators at one point. Once once Israel gets thrown out of America, you know, I think they'll their tentacles in our government will be released from their grip, kind of thing. That will be nice, like it's funny, a lot of people don't even realize why we're in the Middle East still. People are like, why the fuck are we still there? And even just like 5 years ago, I was thinking the same thing. Like, what the fuck keeps dragging us back into that place? Every time we decide, we got peace. Now it's time that we turn inward and focus on fixing ourselves. And every fucking time, bro, we get dragged back into that goddamn fucking area, that region of the world. And I could not figure it out until like a couple years ago. And it finally hit me when I was watching Nick and he started talking about Israel and I was like, "Oh my god," cuz I was thinking, what keeps dragging us back? Like, what keeps doing this? I remember when Bush got elected, the idea was we're finally done with the Middle East. We're finally done with all this fuck shit. We don't have we didn't have debt. We had a We had a fucking balanced budget, baby, from the 90s. Bro, we were talking about fucking privatizing Social Security, investing in the stock market. Bro, we would all be looking lovely. We would all have beautiful Social Security accounts if they had done that. But we were supposed to turn inward and look and start taking care of America. And we could have done it too. We had no debt, man. No fucking debt, bro. The dollar was strong. Huh. Bro, we could be like America was in the 60s if Israel had just left us, or well, if our elites had just focused on America, if they had just focused on us and our country, we could have, man, we could be still kicking ass and taking names, growing at 5, 6%. Like, I really feel like they really dropped the ball with that one, man. We were in a really good place when Bush got elected. Anybody who lived in that time will tell you that. We had no debt. Newt Gingrich had just did the contract with America, and Bill Clinton and the Democrats signed on, where they promised the Americans that they would balance the budget. It was split government. You had the House was the GOP had the House, which is the first time they had the majority in the House for like 50 fucking years, man. It had been a long time that they had not had the House. Like, we think of these trifectas and shit as kind of par for the course, as if that's normal. Like, nowadays, it's normal for us to throw one party completely out, and we just have the trifecta where the GOP have all the branches, or the Democrats have all the branches. Dude, that shit the House had not been Republican majority for like 50 or 60 years. All we had was the executive branch. That's that. That was as far as our power went, from like the 60s to like now, basically, or until Donald Trump got us the Supreme Court. But we hadn't had the Supreme Court in decades, and almost a century practically, and we hadn't had the House in like half a century. We had the presidency: Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford. We had a few of them, but really the Republicans haven't been ruling much in the last century. But we take it as kind of for granted. But like I was saying, though, is the GOP had really shown some good head for administration there in the 90s. They had good leadership. They had Newt Gingrich, uh, calling the shots as speaker. We had a budget surplus. The Soviet Union was defeated, and they got cocky and they got arrogant, and start, oh, we this peace dividend, end of history. And they got fucking arrogant, man. They got stupid and greedy and complacent, and they threw it all down the fucking drain, man. They put us 40 trillion in debt. And I don't do you guys know what we got out of that 40 trillion? Because I mean, as far as I can tell, we didn't. I remember they used to say, "Oh, George Bush went in there for the oil to enrich his friends." I'm like, what oil are you talking about? We didn't even get that. And I started to see there are progressives. They're starting to acknowledge that now. Like, yeah, we were way off. We didn't get anything. Like, they just naturally assumed that, oh, we're there, so we must be getting something out of it. Well, you're assuming too much here. You're assuming that our overlords know what the fuck they're doing anymore, like, because obviously they don't, man. It's even more obvious now. Trump didn't even have a plan for this shit. But it almost beggars the mind that how they fucked up such a good thing, man. America in the late 90s, bro. That was probably the high water mark of any civilization ever. We probably achieved the highest of any peoples, any countries ever in the late 90s before the millennia clocked over. and they fucking threw that shit away, threw it away. You know, we were at replacement rate. Women were working still. I mean, it was like things were good. Things were good, man. And they, I mean, it's a tragedy. It's absolute tragedy, man. We had things. We were riding life on the gravy train with biscuit fucking wheels, man. We had biscuit wheels on that gravy train, my dudes. You know, and hey, and you look at the birth rates and stuff from the '90s. People were having kids too because they, you know, they saw hope on the horizon. You know, they saw something to that they could count on or that they could believe in. It's not anymore, man. It's not good. Like it's a damn shame, really. You know that they squandered. Although you know, I think you know that it's not over till the fat lady sings. You know, like it's not over till it's over. You know, I'm not. I don't count us out. I don't even really see this stuff as black pill. I just the way I look at it is, you know, we got problems to solve still, but you know, we've managed to solve all the problems up until now. So you know, I doubt that there's anything intractable about what we're going through now. It's just we need elites that are willing to make decisions and defend those decisions and stand by those decisions. You know, lately it just seems like they're more concerned with not eh, they're just more concerned with not or not making a shitty decision than they are about making a good decision. So they don't make any decision. You know, they used to have to vote on a war. You know, if, like they had to decide, the Congress had to decide if we were going to go to war. Well, you know, since 9/11, they decided that they don't like voting on war before we go to war because they don't know how the war is going to turn out. They're taking a gamble when they vote on it from the jump. Well, we'll just let the president, you know, get us into these wars. We'll let him run it up. And then if it goes south, we'll say we were against it. What's a win-win? We can't lose. Heads, heads we win, tails you lose. And now they don't do their fucking job, you know? And it's like, if you sons of bitches don't want to do your job, we can get somebody else who'd be glad to do it. You know, all the fucking privileges that you get, and it's like they want more privileges, they want to take more, but they want to do less for it. It's incredible, and you know they're all the time, you know, think wonder if figuring out how they could uh, tyrannize us more central and how they can centralize their tyranny and make it more efficient. And you know that's kind of their shtick, making making them their governments and their fucking way, their systems, their organization systems, making them more efficient. I was saying that the other day. Like whenever there's a country changes or you know like you have a revolution, it's because the ruling elite have they they can do it more efficiently. So they tear everything down with a revolution and rebuild, and they do it different, like the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution. You know that's a swap out elites or they all of a sudden you know they realize that they have new technology they can do it better with so they change it. But you know like humans are pretty dynamic, you know, and there's just too many variables, too many unknowns, too many different personalities. You don't know how any country's going to react, you don't know how they're going to behave. All we can do is really look at the past, you know, like with Japan. You know, they've done harder things than they like what they would have to do if things, you know, if they had to get a military together and start looking after themselves. They've actually accomplished greater feats. You know what I mean? They've climbed higher mountains, higher obstacles they've traversed. So that they can do that. We know that shit. We know that. And I feel like a lot of the countries in the world can. A lot of countries that were great powers in the 19th century, the early 20th century, they're languishing right now. But I'm telling you, man, if the world order changes, I bet you, man, they have a new lease on life, dude. Because think the horizon will open up. They won't. There'll be opportunities for people, to play different roles on different parts of the planet. Protecting trade routes in one part of the planet, or you know, helping other country, or trading with other countries, or working out deals, where they can, you know, help other countries, provide themselves with services and stuff. There's going to be a lot of opportunity because we're going to recede a little bit, and that's going to give other countries the opportunity to step up. It blows my mind how we're constantly propagandized about China. Oh, China this, China that. China's going to take Taiwan, blah 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 blah. That's all bullshit, man. Like I was saying earlier, China, they don't even have contingency plans for interventions. It's not even in their cards, man. It's not even an option. Like right now, we're fighting with Iran, and Israel and us are fighting with Iran. Well, China, they stand to lose a lot from this war, and they could probably stop it too, but they won't because they don't do that. They're not going to get involved in this war, even though it behooves them. That's not what they do. That's not their place on the planet. They're not this fucking world police. They don't need to worry about that shit. They're self-sufficient. And it just pisses me off how our politicians, our elites, man, they just always running game on us, dude. Always running game. How can we fucking fool these people, these NPCs? At least that's how it fucking seems. How can we fool them? How can we fucking pull the wool over their eyes? And like an example of how these elites, how they do shit, how they nothing happens that they don't control. Like the German Revolution I was talking about. Check this shit out, man. So, the Kaiser of Germany, he's basically the emperor of Germany, and he had General Ludendorff and Bismarck, uh Otto von Bismarck. And I think Bismarck was a prime minister or the chancellor, and Ludendorff was like the general for World War One. And Ludendorff was like kind of the political mind. And when they realized they were going to lose the war, Ludendorff came up with an idea. He said, "You know what I'll do is, since we're going to have to surrender here, and we're going to take, it's going to be a massive hit. It's going to be tremendous upheaval over this. People are going to be pissed." So he goes, "You know what I'll do? I'll go and get all the guys that were all of our opposition, all of our enemies, our political enemies, all the guys that we denied power when we formed a government before World War One. All those guys that we held them down, we wouldn't let them join the club. We'll form a government with those guys and stick them with the surrender. That way, yeah, we made the mess, but we're gonna blame it on the guys who are our enemies, who we've been keeping out of power for the last decade. So the people think, oh, we're finally getting our guys. Our guys are finally gonna rule the country. Not that wasn't no, not at all. Our guys are patsies, allowed to win, allowed to be the rulers, just so they could get stuck with the fucking shit end of the stick. Bro, that is textbook elite theory. That is a beautiful example. As soon as when I saw it, I was like, that's the example. That's the example that kind of paints that picture. That these bro, nothing happens. Anytime you think something politically good has happened, maybe you'll get what you want, but for sure they're going to get what they want. Maybe you'll get what you want. They're going to get what they want. They wouldn't let shit happen unless they get what they want out of it, by hook or by crook. That's the way they see things is they don't really care how things come about. All they care is that they do come about. So, if they have to if they have to fucking invasion of the body snatcher, grassroots movement, they will. They will. They'll take control of that shit like Hannibal Lecter, like a like a marionette, and they'll fucking stuff suit it, Kabuki theater their way through an election. And then once they get the guys in, they take the fall and the elites get what they want. Maybe you get what you want. But that's how they work, man. We don't get the only stuff they don't let us get anything unless they get their cut first. And like Trump is a perfect example of that too. Oh yeah, we thought Trump was our guy. No, he was our guy, or we thought he was our guy. And they let us think he was our guy. They let us they go, you know what? We prefer that you think he's your guy, and we'll let you enjoy that victory. And then all at once, he's going to flip the script, and then they're going to find out that he wasn't their guy at all in any way. You see what I'm saying? Like they let us think that we won and we got our guy in there and our guy's going to fix things when it all turns out, no, that wasn't the plan ever. They never, we were never going to get what we wanted. Never. There was no fucking way they were doing America first. It was Israel first, full steam ahead, whether we liked it or not. And these elections and shit, think about it, democracy. First of all, democracy, it's kind of an illusion, but the democracy, really what that is, like our elites, they have an agenda. They have an idea of where they want to go, where they're going to take us, where they're going to take our country, where they're going to take us as a people, the wars we're going to fight, the deals we're going to cut. And all they, how they go about it is, okay, let's let the people pick the guy that they want to sell them this bullshit. Let's let them, we get to choose the person that spoon feeds us the bullshit that they are, that we get to eat. And that's what it is, bro. We literally choose, we pick our poison. We choose the guy, the carnival barker that's going to sell us up the road or sell us, down the river, that's going to take us for a ride, so to speak, Pied Piper. Yeah, we get to pick that guy. What, that as a consolation, I guess. But they don't get, they're getting what they want regardless. And it's like, you guys pick who you want, and basically we pick the guy, or they give us a choice of several different people, and we pick the one who's selling it to us the best. It's that simple. They get their marching orders and they all figure out a plan, how they can veil it, how they can disguise it and get it past us. And we pick the one that tricks us the most, the best, the one that we like the best. And this kind of stuff, it's important that we understand how this stuff goes. Because if we don't understand this dynamic, then we're on the hamster wheel trying to get off of it by running faster. That's what that is. You're on a treadmill and you think you're going to get off the treadmill if you just keep running on it. But I mean, that's essentially what it is. Because every time we vote, I mean, we can get stuff like progress is an illusion too. Sometimes we can get stuff we want, and our standard of living goes up. But we're not driving. We're not in the driver's seat. They're in the driver's seat. And we can benefit from it. It's not black pilled. It's just like it's kind of foolish to think that the guy that our vision of the future is what's going to be chosen, or that it's going to be uh the way we go in the end. It's not. We're going to go their way, but at least if we got to go their way, we can figure out how to leverage our situation to get some benefits. You see, if we don't understand the dynamic, there's no chance that we can parlay this into something that's going to improve our lives. There's no chance of that whatsoever. If we don't understand things, the reality that we're looking at here. we we're just not. I mean, unless you know the forces at play, you can't account for them. It's just we've been getting we've been getting blown around like a fucking piece of trash in a a windstorm or a gust, wind gust or something. It's like we're just getting blown around because we didn't understand what the hell is going on. We're voting, we're voting this way and that, not realizing that really that stuff doesn't really matter. I don't. It doesn't seem to matter. They do what they want to do. When it comes down to it, they do what they want to do. Like the war. There's nothing we could do. They were gonna pick this. They were gonna pick this fight. I mean, it didn't matter who we fucking voted for. They were gonna pick this fight, whether we liked it or not. And the illegal immigration, they weren't gonna do that. Trump, he was they he's in there for one reason and one reason only, to help Israel. And they're fucking crazy. Israel. These motherfuckers really believe in that this eschatological fucking this insane messianic prophecy that they seem to think they're going to bring about if they destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, which will start a holy war. They will have to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is like the greatest building for Muslims on the planet. They'll have to destroy that and build their third temple on the fucking foundation. That is what their end game. They're trying to do that to bring so that God brings their Messiah or gives them their Messiah. And it's just like, really, really though, in modernity, you guys are doing this. Like you guys are operating from faith, from fucking faith. You're making foreign policy now. Really though, really. Aren't you supposed to be the hard-boiled Jays that see everything empirically and you're mathematicians and fucking scientists? Where are those guys? Let's have those guys come back, please. We're done with this shit, this fucking fairy tale stuff. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous, bro. And to think, I mean, I guess the Christian Zionists in our country, there's quite a lot of them. There's a lot of evangelicals in America, and apparently a lot of them are really caught up in the Christian Zionist shit. It's absurd. We got our Messiah. And and it's hard to really to understand exactly where we're at. I mean, I feel like we're right on the edge of a big change, but it's still kind of a little bit murky on what the hell our elites are thinking. What in the hell? Why all of a sudden, you know, have things changed where they're bringing immigration? Uh, what is it? Is it that they're restructuring their fucking resource colonies? Restructuring middle management with some Indians, getting rid of the old caretakers of the plantation. Like, what is it, man? What the hell is what bug do they have up their ass that they seem to think that it's a good idea for for them to just kill us off, kill white people off, just get rid of us? Like, what the fuck? And China, they're having like a renaissance right now with Western philosophy, like Enlightenment philosophers or like Plato, Homer, um, Shakespeare, Goethe. Uh, they're having like a renaissance with that at the moment. Dante, Milton, they're like really into Western classics at the moment. And China and Asia, they've always been into Western culture, but never like they see the value in it, same as us. And matter of fact, they actually might Western culture is the most valuable in Asia. In the West, It's actually the least valuable. Our academic institutions, they teach that the West was evil and that it needs to die. That's what they teach in schools. That the West is evil, it brought about colonization and this and that and the third. And basically, it and the men that brought it about need to die. And China doesn't feel that way. They're like, no, stop, don't kill yourselves. We need you going forward. Don't do this. And they appreciate that we're the product of this civilization. But our own damned elites don't. They don't give a damn, it seems like. And like we have such a rich history, so valuable, and us as a people, you know, we have we have like resources, like as a civilization, we're not the same as white people from 2000 years ago. We've learned a lot in those millennia. We went from being feudal serfs to, modern forms of government. We've come a long way. We've had our disagreements, civil wars and such, but we've learned a lot, and we're a very civilized group of people, probably the most civilized on the planet, or at least in the top. And our past colors our lives. Like the traditions we learn as children, the the way of life. Like the way that your parents do stuff, the way that they teach you to do stuff, tying your shoes, how you dry off when you get out of the shower, or how you take your clothes off after work, what you start with and what you end with, whether it's start with your hat, work your way down to your socks or whatever, you know what I mean? It's just even little menial shit like that, yeah, is colored by all the people who came before, your ancestors. And that knowledge is stacked, and your family is not just the last generation. It's literally all the things that your people have learned in their lifetimes that they passed on to their kids. And that shit collects, it stacks. To where once you like the Persians, man, 3,000 years those people have been around. I wonder if they know some tips and tricks to life, some life hacks and shit. Of course they do. Of course they know how to, dude, they have the shit down to a science, guaranteed. They know how to live. They know what a good way of what a way of life should look like, what it entails. They've figured out the dangers and the pitfalls I mean, but you know, and there's a reason why, some families do better than other families. Some families have a better culture than other families. That's like, I don't know, I'd say that more successful people, a lot of people in the ruling class, they figured out how to organize their lives so that they have a better, or that they come out on top, and they pass it down to their kids. And that's how it goes. So the good habits in your bloodline, those, they kind of go together. Your DNA isn't just your DNA. It goes along with habits and learned history, or learned habits and stuff that you get from your parents. Yeah, and just the thought of, it's just so gruesome to think about this double whammy, this fucking carrot and a stick, where they have abortion in case we fuck up and get a chick pregnant, and they demagogue how pregnancy will ruin a woman's life, and they're replacing us, and you know what I mean, and they're trying to get us stuck in forever wars so they can institute a draft and have us and ship us off to the meat grinder so they can just get rid of us wholesale. Because That's what they want to do in Europe and fucking Ukraine, bro. The UK. And what they're realizing is they wouldn't be able to they would not be able to they wouldn't be able to get people, they wouldn't be able to form an army. They just wouldn't be able to do it. Nobody's willing to die for those countries. Those ruling elite have abandoned those people. They treat them like garbage. They're replacing them. They fucking they're oppressing them. They're holding them down so that the Muslims can rape their children. I mean, they have just really started stepping on those people. And of course, no shit, those people don't want to go fucking fight and die in a damned war that these sons of bitches have set up. Literally a war between two ruling elites, the Russian elites and the European elites, and they want us to go die so that we, want Europeans to go protect the European ruling elites' positions as the ruling elite. And it's like, you're fucking out of your mind. Why would they do such a thing? Why wouldn't they just rebel and kill your asses? If they were going to have to fight, why wouldn't they just fight you? You're the enemy closer to home. And we know what Europe's capable of. They'll do what they got to do. That shit is that it happened less than a century ago, and they've been I mean, Europe is they have really been doing their people dirty, and I wouldn't be surprised if those people had just about had enough, and we're just about ready to throw that yoke off and throw the bums out and get rid of all the people that have settled there. I mean, it's a travesty, that nobody saw this coming. Nobody expected that, these bastards would try to replace us. But I mean, it's obvious. I think everybody agrees that that's just what's going on. You don't see the Chinese doing that to their people. You don't see any other civilization. It's just ours. We have this shit group of elites that they really think globalism is the way to go. The Klaus Schwabs and shit. Absolutely, it would be cheaper to have a war here. If we're gonna fight somebody, I'm not going to fucking fight somebody in Ukraine. Go fuck yourself on that. Let's How about we just duke it out right here now? And we'll decide, who's gonna call the shots from here on out. And as I was reading about that elite theory, and it really is kind of infallible. It is kind of an iron law because like the saying goes, he who says organize says oligarchy. As soon because you're a group of unorganized people and you need rulers, you need a government. And let's say we're all just equals, and everybody's like, well, who's going to do it? Who's looking around? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Finally, somebody says, well, fuck, like, I just want to do my farming and have my family, and that be it. I'm not trying to fucking rule you guys, but if we need a government, I will kick in and help. We'll help figure out how to set up a government, like our founders did, exactly like that. Well, because you have to organize. You have to organize people. You have to organize into institutions and stuff. And when you organize, you necessarily set yourself apart from the rest of the unorganized mass. And when you set yourself apart, you start getting perks and privileges that you don't want to lose, all of a sudden. And then you become an entrenched elite. And there's no way out of that. There's no way out of that. Like, let's say, we've had enough of this elite. These bastards have been selling us up the river for a century now. Let's throw the bums out. Let's fix this. Well, you can't fix it. As soon as you throw them out, you just have another set of elites. There's no way to fix that. If you try to, that's why they say, he who says organize says oligarchy. As soon as you organize, the whole idea of organizing that makes an elite. So as soon as you do that, you're in the trap again, basically. So this is just a human way of being. There's no choice. We don't have a choice. It's the way it's got to be. And it's just like, kind of figuring out, okay, well then what are our options going from there, We have to have an elite. Okay, what's the lesser of the evils? Let's try to sort this out and figure out how to feather ourselves the best nest going forward. I mean, we just look at your options, okay, we have to have an elite whether we like it or not. Communism don't work. We know that. And, we don't want to do fucking chaos where it's just anarchy. That doesn't work. So, you just set it up so that the people that aren't the ruling elite get a decent living or a decent way of life, a decent standard of living. In other words, we have to resign ourselves to being, being ruled and resign ourselves that there are, that we're just one of two groups and we're like the junior partner of the groups of the two. Really, the most we can expect is that we get a say. You know, that's that's reasonable. I mean, it's like if you don't want to rule, then you have to content yourself with being ruled. If you don't want to be, if you don't have the ambition and the drive and the intelligence and the administration capabilities to rule, then you, by de facto, you have to content yourself with being ruled, unless because there's a lot that it takes the ambition, this responsibility you're taking on, making decisions, this, that, and the other. So it's like, and I really don't want to be a ruler, but there's either you become a ruler and you help make decisions, or you resign yourself to being okay with the rulers at powers that be. So I mean, those are the two choices, and it's like, it's hard. I don't see it as black pill. It's like, well, it was never any different. You know what I mean? It's always been this way. At least now, we kind of understand what we're dealing with here. We understand the nature of the beast at this point. That this is the way it works, and it's not like it's not unfair. It's just the way it is. It's like as soon as you start organizing, you become just another ruling class, and you become entrenched, and because you control all the laws, you control, you're molding all the institutions. Of course you're going to set it up so that you're reoccurring, or that your kids take your place. You're going to set it up so that you benefit from all the institutions, all the different laws, all the different traditions are, you're going to set them up so they benefit you, and that that they naturally, keep you in power. And like our elites, they actually did a really good job up until World War II, or even maybe even the 60s, you could say, or the 90s, possibly even. But actually, they did a good job until World War II. They did a really good job. We were like a lightning bolt, just out of the blue, and go from like fucking pre-industrial revolution, slavery and shit, to the atomic age, the space age. It's pretty impressive. Another thing, Japan too, like I was talking about them earlier. Japan went from being totally leveled to the fucking ground from nuclear weapons and firebombing in World War II. Within 20 years, they were the greatest manufacturing base of all time, basically. By the 60s, they were the number one producers of goods like electronics and shit. They went from being rubble in the 40s to being on top of they were China. They were the China of the 60s. They built it all, and I remember my dad telling me that Germany was always known for their optics, binocs and shit, binoculars, telescopes and whatnot. They had really good optics. And they had really good optics even in World War II and stuff. And the Japanese, uh, instead of buying German optics, they copied German optics and made their own optics, and they were just as good. Like, and the Japanese and the Germans, they're known for their lenses. They're known for their camera lenses, their binocular lenses. They're really high quality. You know, their telescope lenses, microscope lenses. They make some bad to the bone stuff. Stuff that is, you know, the art, the quality control is second and third to none. You know, they I think the Germans are still the top, and you know the Japs are right behind them. You know, they make and like when I was a kid, Japanese stuff was pretty much as good as American made. Like it was Chinese stuff that was considered garbage back then anyway. Before they had gotten good at manufacturing, it was great. They just made toys and injection molded lizards and shit. But you know, Japanese and American was quality shit. Well, in the 60s, everybody saw Japanese stuff as cheap Chinese knockoff bullshit. As it was. You know, when you first start up in a manufacturing base, an industrial base, you start out with easy products. You know, you make toys like China. They made toys, the injection molded lizards. That's what Japan did. They made goofy, like those little robotic things you know, the wind up toys that walk across the yeah, they made shit like that for the first few years. And as they start getting the manufacturing, as they start understanding how to the tooling and how to, you know, work it all and set it up and operate everything, you know, once they figure that out, they start moving on to more difficult products. Literally, China went through the exact same thing in like the 90s and aughts. I think I wonder why Nick didn't. He said he would be back on Monday, so apparently he's not doing anything this weekend. I've been thinking about probably gonna set up those memberships for the channel this weekend because I was actually kind of brainstorming it and uh, war gaming it out in my head. And you know, actually, now that I think about it, it is a good idea. It's good timing because you know I actually have the content, or you know I've been thinking about it and I've been uh, coming up with you know scheduling and content for going forward. You know that I can actually offer you know stuff for like free or just people that are subscribing, and then you know uh, offer different stuff for ships. I mean, I just been thinking about it, and it's obviously a good idea. The whole idea of it is, you know, it helps build community and kind of. I mean, I like the idea, of course. I just, you know, I was kind of at a loss. I didn't really, and you know, I never really done that. I don't have any experience doing this stuff, so it took me a little bit of time to think about it, and also to do trial and error and figure out how I wanted stuff going forward. But definitely say I figured it out. You know, I did a post earlier. Oh, you know, one of the things like what our elites should be doing right now, they should be fucking brokering this new world order. Like I said in the post, you know, why the fuck aren't our elites having a sit down with the Chinese elites and the Russian elites? Why aren't they having a fucking sit down with these guys and saying, hey, eventually we're going to have to give up the ghost when it comes to this hegemon. We're going to have to share the spotlight with at least China, most likely Russia too, but we're going to have to share the spotlight. How about we just work this out now instead of waiting for a fucking catastrophe to throw us into, you know, to just get thrown in the water and, you know, forced to learn, you know, on the fly. How about we plan this out like good, intelligent, forward thinking men, you know, and work out a way of doing this. a way of doing this so that we can come out ahead. Because we have a lot to lose. We have a good standard of living, better than really anybody else. And if we want to maintain that, it's going to take some jockeying and some deal making, some wheeling and dealing. It's going to take more than just stumbling around in the fucking dark. Like, we got lucky with the land we got and the population and this and that. And it's like, something, let's not rely on luck and hope. Hope is not a strategy. Let's not hope for the best going forward. Let's do something about it. Let's go get the best. Let's go cut the best deal, get ourselves the best situation. Because just sitting around waiting for us to, something to happen that knocks us out of the top spot, why don't we just broker, negotiate a partnership with these other major powers like China and Russia, or even just China? We negotiate something and have and do like a joint minister or a joint administration. They can shoulder some of this burden, so we're not fucking assed out in the wind all the time. Way out on a limb and shit, and taking chances and crossing, the rest of the world, and it doesn't make sense anymore. We're not the only ones that benefit from it. But China benefits from this a lot, from the petrodollar and stuff. It's like, why don't they're really not our enemy. They sell us all of our shit. They don't want they have their country, and they're just concerned with making their people happy and growing. They're just concerned with their living standard over there. They're not trying to take over America. I mean, maybe they want Taiwan, but like they have all they need. They're just trying to reassert their eminence in the world. And you can't blame them for that. They are eminent. And it just pisses me off how our elite, man, they propaganda so much. And our media, that's got to be the most toxic of institutions, like of all time, ever. The mainstream media, all they do is lie to us. They fucking spread the feminism. They spread all these disgusting Marxist ideologies, all these anti-Western ideologies. They are the bane of our existence. They're the toxic bastards that do the rulers, the ruling elite, do their dirty work. It seems like they're the ones that look us in the eye and straight bold faced lie to us. Oh yeah, we're not gonna start any forever wars. And they've been forcing us into things that we didn't choose. Like women voting and stuff. That I'm sure that wasn't American men's idea. That was forced on us by a bunch of fucking liberal rulers. I doubt the women even wanted it. And you see women on TikTok nowadays, like, who was the stupid feminist that made it so women have to work a full-time job? And I'm thinking to myself, like, women probably really didn't even ask for this. I'm sure that Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem, those the old the suffragettes and shit, they were fucking operatives, man. Those were CIA operatives, bro. Like, there's that it's that simple, bro. Those people were literally CIA operatives that fucking that spoon fed us that bullshit. And all the J's and all of our positions of the ruling class, the academy, Hollywood, they ate that shit up and then shoved it down our throats, transmitted it and shoved it down our throats. And like, American women were against this. We're against feminism and shit. They had a whole counter movement. of mothers and stuff. Like, what a shame, man. Our women, they didn't even ask for this. It was pressed upon them. They were happy. Just, having children, enjoying their families and their lives. And our mothers and grandmothers were propagandized so much that they were talked into instilling these shit values in their daughters. It's just like, man, how diabolical. Like when people say, "Oh, there's a conspiracy," or like what is it, the Plantagenet, or the no, what is it, the it's like Pentaverate that Mike Myers always talking about, the Pentaverate, run by the Rothschild, the Queen, or the royal family, and a couple of other shady people. The Vatican, they're one of them too. But like there really is, a shady group of elite that are shoving that they're feeding us. They fed us everything, all the different change that's come into our culture, bro. That shit did not generate in the American culture. Americans lived their American lifestyle until World War II, and then they started fucking shoving other shit down our throats, like the modern iterations of the Republican and Democrat Party. It's just flip sides of two sides of the same coin. And the CIA set it up that way. Specifically, they set it up that way. Really, it's all contrived. They sat down and figured out how to do this. Figured out how to do the parties, the political parties. They figured out how to get us to accept the change, like to send our women to work, giving them all these rights, letting them get abortions and shit. That shit was not. We didn't ask for that. They shoved it down our throats. So it's like it's not even all this. I remember, just recently thinking, how, man, how badly our fathers and the men, a couple generations before us, how badly they screwed it up. The boomers, man, they didn't have any sovereignty. They didn't choose this. They were so propagandized. They didn't know what they wanted. You know what I mean? Like they didn't even have they didn't even get to make this decision consciously. They were led there blindfolded, with like they didn't even realize they were being held, their hand was being held while they were being led down some shit fucking treacherous path. And we have the mess to clean up. And I still feel like there's a lot of hope though, as like this is the way the world's always been. And we're just about we're on the cusp of a change, and we need change desperately. Like I've been saying, like we really do need change. The way things are right now, it's not working. It's not working. And we're not going to figure this out. This road we've been traveling down, it's a fucking dead end, man. It is a dead end, literally. Like we're not reproducing, we're not as dynamic as we once were. We're not having um a technology. I mean, we have AI, but it's not like we're inventing the iPhone and this. You know what I mean? Like we've kind of, I don't know if we hit a plateau, but we're not producing these paradigm changing products anymore, for the moment anyway. I think the change will do us good. I mean, I'm not black pilled about it at all. I think the shitty parts of life are going to be there whether we realize it or not. You know, w- we don't get very much of a choice. but at least going forward, I think there's room for us to get some of the things we want. I really do. Because there's a change coming about soon. That's when you got to get in your licks. That's when you've got to put in your grievances. You know what I mean? Because that's when they open up the books. Think about like The Godfather. They're fixing to open up the books soon. And we might get straightened out. Our name might be in the books and we might get straightened out. And I see that possibility. I think it's a good likelihood of that happening. That we'll get straightened out if we just play ball. Going into this change. I mean, but we kind of have to organize to a degree. Like we have to organize enough to put forward a group that will negotiate for us. And I know that when you organize, automatically you're just setting up another oligarchy. Another set of elites. But it's like as an unorganized mass that has no front facing group of people, they'll just do whatever they want to us. We don't have any say at all in that when we're just an unorganized herd and they'll move us in whatever direction they want. At least if we organize, get a few people that can articulate what we want and deal with these motherfuckers like a union, dealing with the capital owners, dealing with the business owners, the guys who own the means of destruct or means of uh uh the means of production. And we just need to get ourselves a union together. And I know when you set up a union, you're really just, like I said, you're setting up an alternative elite. But I would rather have somebody giving our input when they got the books open, when they're figuring everything out going forward. It would be nice if we had somebody just at least to articulate our opinions, our or our point of view. I mean, if we have somebody doing that, even 1% of the time, we might get 1% better outcomes for ourselves. But that is kind of the way I see it. Is like we're our government is just a family, like in the Godfather. The five families. America's just one of the families. In the world, there's like five or six ruling gangster mobs, or gangs. You got Russia, their ruling gang. You got China's ruling gang. You got the EU's ruling gang. You got America's ruling gang. You might have a couple others, as alongside that, but that's about the skinny of it. And sometimes when changes are being made, when they're drawing up blueprints and shit, that's when they can, you know, that's when they can do stuff for you without having to put in any effort. You know what I mean? It's like once the blueprints are drawn and the system is made up, like the petrodollar, they can't go back and change it. We just got to live with it. But if we can get our word in while they have the books open with the Chinamen and whoever else, we have we stand to gain from that. I mean, I'm just kind of trying to see what it is we're looking at, what our options are. What the fuck do we even have any options? We do. The only thing that sucks is, I think we would be bargaining from a weaker position than typically because of AI. We always, they had the means of production, but they always needed us to operate the means of production. They needed our labor. Well, the more AI, the better it gets, the less they need our labor. So we're actually bargaining from a weaker position. Although you never know, things may not turn out how they seem like they're going to turn out. I still think though, like no matter what happens with AI, they're not just going to be able to just go on without uh a labor. They need human capital whether they like it or not. You know, AI can't open and close doors and turn doorknobs. It just can't. check out some of the chats here. What you guys been talking about? Yeah, so I don't look at the chat so much when I'm ranting because it just distracts me, man. And I forget where I was at, and then I'm like pausing and like trying to figure out where what I was just thinking, and so I kind of just gave up on that. Like, it's gonna wait. And usually I don't even do the chats, but you guys are talking, so it's like I may as well see what y'all had to say and discuss it. That's kind of the point of the streams, right? Uh, yeah, I would say erotica, is that the guy's name? The West is immortal. It is everywhere. Real. It is. I mean, it's to a degree, certainly. To a degree, it is kind of immortal. I mean, so much of the modern world is a product of the West, and so much is from our contributions. And I just don't think, like, if they people think the human race is just going to keep on trucking once white people are gone, I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think you know the chances of the human race continuing on its current trajectory. I don't think there's even a chance of that. I think they would just fall back into some form of barbarity. I mean, to my mind, because I mean, we're the ones that create all the value. The Chinese, they don't create any value. They just build shit. They just manufacture. They don't actually have the creativity aspect of it. Keep on rocking in the free world. Well, no, Nick isn't going live tonight. That's what I was saying at the beginning. Yeah, he tapped or he sent out a message way earlier tonight saying he wasn't going to do a show. I need to figure out how to break these streams up so that I can kind of stick with the chats as I go through it. But I'm kind of fucking tired, man. I got like my throat. I don't know what the fuck, man. I need to quit smoking cigarettes. I think that's what it is. I'm constantly trying to hack some shit up, but it won't come up. But yeah, my fucking throat is like tight. I keep coughing. But I think I'm gonna stop it there. It was a pretty good rant. Got some shit off my chest. I do intend on doing at least one video this week. I'm gonna try and do it tomorrow. And you'll see the notify me thing. You'll see the video if I am. So there'll be plenty of notice. Anyway, I think I'm gonna leave it there for tonight. It's a shame Dick didn't do his thing, but I figured, I may as well. I mean, I still had something to say, so I've been thinking and kind of just soaking up all this news when it comes to Iran and stuff. And I don't think things are quite as black pilled as I thought they were at first. I think there's a lot of hope actually. But I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I hope you guys will hop on this weekend, do a stream, and also keep an eye out. Like I said, I am going to do that. I'm going to do the memberships this weekend, and I intend on kind of rolling that out with some content. So keep an eye out for that. But until next time, gentlemen. Till this later on this weekend or Monday. Good night and God bless, fellas.